Hey guys, what's up? In today's video, we're talking about this. Well, this whole setup. So, I'll make it quick. Yes, I did purchase this HP Omen gaming PC. Now, you could probably tell this is an older model of an HP Omen. It's not the newest possible models that have like the tempered glass and the weird front panel thing going on. But this is a pretty recent Omen, a couple years old, not even. This is rocking an i5 7th gen and a GTX 1060. Now, on paper, that doesn't sound too bad. And when you hear the price, you might actually be surprised. I got this computer, this relatively okay Red Dragon keyboard, it's nothing special, membrane maybe, and this kind of RGB Red Dragon mouse, as well as this pretty premium HyperX mousepad. Again, all used, not exactly amazing, but they function. I got this whole setup, excluding the monitor, for $350 US. That's it. I paid $350 flat. Nothing on top of that. That's it. That is the exact amount of money I paid for the setup. So I think I got a pretty good deal, even when we actually dive into the real specs of the system, and why i5 7th gen and GTX 1060 are kind of misleading. As you can see, the system is turned on and we do have a screen and everything, so Windows is installed on the 1TB drive in this system. More on that later. This system has 0 SSD space. It is only rocking a 1TB boot hard drive. What exact model it is, we'll find out when we open this thing up. I don't actually know yet, but it is only rocking a hard drive inside, which sucks. But not only is it just rocking a hard drive, because of the just atrocious amount of bloatware on this system, that hard drive is literally loaded to 100% usage every time I start the system and doesn't go down until way later. So it is literally so slow, that hard drive, at booting the system. I do not want to sit here and install a game onto it. It'll be a waste of time. I would have to wait till tomorrow for all of my games to be done downloading. In this video, we're going to open this thing up, see what's inside, see what's wrong with it, and see if maybe there's an upgrade path for it, or what I'm actually going to do with it. My plan is to maybe upgrade the storage somehow, maybe figure it out, or replace the motherboard and try something else with the storage. The processor and graphics card, again on paper, are pretty decent, so this could be a system I could try to give away if I can make it work properly. I do not want to give away a system that has a boot hard drive, or possibly sell this. I don't know. Let's open this thing up and see what's inside. First things first, I'm going to turn it off. That hard drive thing is really annoying for a system that, when it came out, could cost about, I'd say almost $1,000. And they're giving me a hard drive. I'm very disappointed in that. But again, I got a $350, so I'm happy. Now, in turning the system over, we can actually see that I've already opened it up, and that's because I was trying to put in my own SSD and it just wasn't working, so that's where this whole mess came from. So I just left it open. So as you can see, the system is actually pretty freaking messy. It's got dust everywhere. After this video, I'm gonna spend time cleaning it all up and everything, but right now I just want to get in there and take it apart, no matter how dusty and gross it is. Now, one thing you'll notice right away is this PC actually opens from the opposite side panel that most computers do, because as you can see, the motherboard is actually upside down in the case. This is one of those stupid things where companies try to flip the standards for some reason to make, I don't know, the graphics card up like this. I don't know, it's so stupid and such a waste of time and probably money, especially for such a crappy motherboard. Yeah, we got 2 RAM slots, and of course they only populated one with an 8GB stick. Yeah, this only has 8 gigs of RAM, so that's great. Gaming PC with only 8 gigs of RAM. I mean, at least it's good. It's clearly, yeah, Micron memory, so it's at least decent, but this is DDR4 2400, nothing special. I guess that's kind of like the max speed for 7th gen Intel chips, but still, 8 gigs, fine, whatever. 8 gigs of DDR4, upgradable to 16 because we have 2 DIMM slots, and that's it. Alright, let's take this graphics card out. Stupid little metal, can I, please, there we go. One of these stupid things. I hate these. These piss me off so much. Like, just screw in the card like a normal person. This goes for cases. This goes for companies. This is the dumb. I hate these. These stupid metal GPU holders. And now our GPU should just... There we go. And we do have one 6-pin connector. Now, you would think that with a power supply that has a 6-pin, and actually has a second 6 plus 2 pin, so that is 8 plus 6 pin, as well as 8-pin EPS 12 volt, despite only using 4 for this crappy motherboard. You would think it's a decent wattage, you know, so it's efficient and powerful. But this 80 plus bronze unit has a maximum output of 420 watts. Besides being dusty as hell, I mean, there is fur on this 1060. This GPU is really nothing special. It's fine. It works. I'll give it that. Like, it's a working GPU. Doesn't it just look like a graphics card with a CPU cooler slapped on it? 'Cause that's basically what it is. It is only a 3 gigabyte card. This is the GTX 1060 3 gig. The crappier version of the 1066 gig. So it's really nothing special. This is not special. I will give this card a full clean. I'll take this frickin' cooler off and actually I'm gonna put it in water. I'm gonna wash this thing. This is atrocious. It's so dusty. Alright, what do we have here? We have zip ties? No, they're zip tying things together. What pointless zip ties these are. Alright, yep. 4-pin to the motherboard for our weak-ass CPU. Thankfully, it uses standard 24-pin. And this looks like a pretty standard size power supply. At the very least, I could upgrade this to some pretty okay EVGA 500 or 600 watt unit and be relatively fine. Again, 420 is not super low. It's just not a wattage I tend to want to use in my systems. Alright, and here it is. This is, 7200. So it is a 7200 RPM. Again, nothing terrible per se about this hard drive. It's a WD Blue standard 1 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drive, except as a boot drive, it's just too damn slow. With all of the bloatware that HP and other pre-built companies put on their pre-built, it is unacceptable to boot from a hard drive. It's just too slow. It's just too slow. Now, looking through the rest of this case, I can already tell airflow is probably garbage, but for a 7400, yes, an i5 7400, which is what's under this heatsink, no point in taking off that heatsink, except to wash later. I do want to try to benchmark this system without the hard drive, because it's pointless to try with the hard drive. I want to try to get an SSD working here, so I'm going to leave that in for now. This is still a pretty powerful rig. It could probably play modern games with this GPU. I will be testing this graphics card in a whole different video, and it's probably okay. Alright, moving on to benchmarks, because I have no idea how to make YouTube videos. So, first things first, we're going to start off with the classic benchmarking game for what I consider lower-end systems. I usually benchmark Grand Theft Auto 5 because it's still a game that's surprisingly old, but actually can tax a relatively modern system, as well as actually being a decent game to play. So it's definitely a good benchmark, especially for lower-end hardware like this, in my opinion. So, we are clearly, I'm just going to say it, CPU bottlenecked in this game. We are running at anywhere from 80 to 100% usage on our i5 7400 at any given time, and those 4 cores, 4 threads are being used to the max, and we were boosting to around 3300 megahertz, which is about 200 megahertz short of the 3500 megahertz boost clock, which is kind of low, just to be completely honest, especially considering the same generation the i7 had a 4.5, so that's a 1 gigahertz difference in the boost clocks of those two CPUs, but that's besides the point. So even when doing things like graphically intensive, like turning on cheats and blowing up everything, you can see that our CPU is still mostly the bottleneck. We do get our GPU loaded up to a pretty high percentage at some points, but definitely CPU bottleneck in this game. Clearly, our RAM is actually about 7 gigabytes of usage, so we could end up actually running out, especially if we upgraded our CPU at all. We could end up with a RAM bottleneck, which is actually pretty rare, given that most systems have a decent amount of RAM nowadays, but 8 gigs of RAM might just not be enough. But as you see, clear bottleneck, but we're still getting, anywhere from 40s on the low ends when doing a lot of different blowing up of stuff in the game. Anywhere it's like we can even get upwards of 90, but it's average around 60 to 70 FPS, which is definitely more than playable in this game. And this is still a formidable PC for playing Grand Theft Auto 5, even after all these updates. Now, moving on to Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Zombies specifically, because it's the only playable game mode in this garbage game. It's kind of iffy of whether or not you consider this playable. First things first, clearly our CPU is again the bottleneck, which is surprising because typically with older systems, the GPU ages much worse than the CPU, but in today's system, again, we're just bottlenecked by our CPU. It's almost at 100% usage at almost all times in the game. It's just not that great. And as for our FPS, sadly, I don't think our poor old 4-core, 4-thread i5 7400 can keep up that well. We cannot get 60 FPS at almost any point in the game. We're really, realistically speaking, sitting around 40 to 50 at almost any point, especially when there's a lot of zombies. Although, what I did do, just to kind of prove a point, is that I did make it to around like 30 something, just to be like, okay, you know, this isn't the most playable experience, but here's the thing, if you're good at a game, you can play on most systems that can at least run the game at 30 to 60 FPS. So, you know, if I can make it to around 30 something, people in my comment section who tell me they need a PC because they're the best player in the world and their computer's not good enough, if you're the best player in the world, you can play on almost anything. So, you know, just thought I would show that. But as you can see, even on these high rounds, I did my little triple pack-a-punch high round strat, where I just pack-a-punch the first gun I get in the box, which was the MP5 in this case, and I also had a rocket launcher because I was bored. But that's besides the point. As you can see, it's not the most playable experience on the planet. It's a little disappointing, but again, it's up to you whether you would buy this game given you had this system, but I definitely think a CPU upgrade to at least a 7500, if not like a 7600K, if that even exists, I think it does, is definitely necessary for a more playable experience. We just need a higher clock speed or a higher core count. But either way, around 45, 50 FPS. And moving on to Cyberpunk 2077. Yes, this is probably a mistake game to run, but when I loaded it up, and again, I set everything to minimum settings, so this is all low, 80% resolution scale, so it's, again, not the best, but the game is actually what I would call cinematically playable. So, basically, we're getting around 30 FPS, which isn't amazing for, like, competitive gameplay, but for a game that looks this nice, it's, depending on how you think about it, kind of playable, which is surprising. It's actually more playable than Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War was, which is, again, very surprising. But, as you can see, you know, depending on what we're doing in the game, we can even get upwards of 40 FPS, which is, again, pretty impressive for this system. But, of course, again, you know, it's really up to you whether you think this is actually playable. But I think this is surprising. The game still looks super nice, which is actually part of the reason it's barely playable, because it looks so nice, and it just destroys any graphics card and or CPU and RAM that is put in your system, but that's the point. So, yeah, you know, I'll just play the gameplay for you guys here and let you get your own opinions, but that's really it. So, again, I know the suite of games was a little unbalanced today. That was the 3 games I could install the quickest onto my SSD that I had, because for some reason it was the only one of my SSDs would actually boot in this system because of the way their pre-built are BIOS and everything is so stupid. But that's the point. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed this little video. I definitely think, even given the fact that we're CPU bottlenecked in most games, and then in Cyberpunk it's the GPU that just can't keep up, but again, the CPU is not much better, I still think for $350 I definitely got my money's worth. This will make a great PC, either for just some light gaming or whatever. Maybe I'll give it away. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it, but that's the point. Hope you guys kind of enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.